Hi there, it's a real pleasure to be here today on Eagle Day presenting to everybody. What I am going to present a new archaeological discovery that myself and some of our Galen Eagles in anthropology discovered on Tuesday morning. Really cool ancient Maya solar observatory. This presentation is incredibly visual, so for those listening to me right now, it might be better to come and have a look. Trying to explain how the sun works and things like this is kind of hard. So the title of my talk changed to reflect our discovery earlier this week. So in addition to it being Eagle Day, it is also the Equinox. So I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about what the equinox is and its importance. So basically, the year is divided into 4 quarters. The longest day is called the summer solstice. That happens in the summer. The shortest day, where the night is the longest, is the winter solstice. That happens in December. The 2 points in the middle, where day and night are roughly equal, is called the equinox. And today is the vernal or the spring equinox, where the day and night are roughly the same amount of time. Now, it's not just us who realize this. Humans have recognized this for probably tens of thousands of years. We know that they've known about it for at least several thousand years. Thank you. So maybe almost 20 years ago, I was working at this place. This is Stonehenge. This is very famous for an alignment on the summer and winter solstice, whereby the sun rises through the great trilithons with these huge sarsen stones in the middle. Pretty clever stuff. Obviously, people knew exactly where the sun would rise on the longest and the shortest day of the year. Stonehenge doesn't have the same alignments during the equinoxes. It is seemingly built around the solstices, and the summer solstice being the key one where the sun rises. Now, this is fairly simple stuff for people to figure out. So sometimes people talk about solar observatories and astronomical alignments and the ancient Maya, and people, it leads to all this sort of speculation about aliens or how did they know. Basically, this requires looking at the sunrise on different days of the year. You probably put a stick in the ground where it rises and build something on top of the stick. So while it's very, very cool, we don't need to be looking at outside explanations for any of this sort of thing. Now, with the ancient Maya in the 1920s, this German archaeologist guy called Franz Blom, working at a site called Huashactún in Guatemala, and he noticed that we have this long, what we call a range structure on the eastern side, a western observatory, and an eastern structure. And what he noticed was that in the equinox, the sun would rise right above the central part of this range structure. What he discovered is what's now come to be known as E groups. It's named after Group E at Huashactún. They're surprisingly common. There's probably something like, so we have these classic E groups that are early, and then we have later iterations of them. But in terms of Maya structures that do this, there's probably about 20 within a 10-kilometer radius of us right now. There's one at Baking Pot, 2 kilometers over there. There's something in the field over there we can probably see if you squint. It might do something similar. So they're fairly common. But sometimes they don't quite have the alignments. It takes a little bit of figuring it out. But yeah, basically what you have with these, where Stonehenge only works on the solstices, with Maya E groups, it works on the equinoxes, works on the summer solstice, and it works on the winter solstice. So in the summer, the sun will rise directly behind the northernmost temple on the structure. On the winter solstice, on the southernmost component, and then today, those equinoxes are from last year on there, unfortunately, but today, this morning, the sun would have risen above all of these temples, as it's been doing so for the last 2,000 years or more, maybe more. But it's a case of being in the right place at the right time. So on top of that western structure, there's a really good example of one of these at Karakol, actually. It's more or less intact, and I think you might be able to see it. Carl-Petch, we've got one, which my colleagues and friends, Jaime Arwe, Claire Ebert, and others investigated a few years ago. Now, the eastern structure here is buried in a much later structure. The Western Observatory is actually under the plaza, and we managed to identify it using geophysics to look under the ground surface. And we basically found that it had been modified and changed over time, so it no longer works. So it's important early on. Later on, the thing changes. Perhaps here you're going to have to squint for this one as well. We discovered this on Tuesday morning. This is in the City River. So Galen anthropology students, Raziel Rodriguez, Alicia St. Clair, Gerard Aird, who are sat in the audience right now, Abby Sarmiento, who else was out there with us that day? Oh, and Ishor, yes, and Frank Zib were all there when we discovered this. And I was having a conversation with Dr. Amy Thompson, who I work with, and we were literally talking about, I was like, I need to figure out that presentation about the equinox. I turned round, I stood there, and I turned round, and I was like, oh my gosh. So it's really hard to see because there's coconuts all over it, which is why I hope I didn't notice it at first. But basically, that's the central component. The southern component is behind that coconut tree. I told you this was very visual, so you guys are getting a much better experience than anyone who's listening in. The northern component is up there in this really tall grass. But basically, the guess is that this morning the sun rose above the central component of this E group structure. As it's done, probably, we don't know how old it is, probably at least 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years. And it's only us who now know about it. So it's been doing it for a very long time without us knowing about it. But now we do. So it's quite a cool discovery. Yes. Yeah. So behind that coconut tree there's actually quite a nice little mound. Yeah, Alicia might be able to point it out. Yep. There's just a low mound. Yeah. So where that white line is drawn is over the mounds, but the grass is higher than the central part of it. Although sometimes the grass out there was higher than me. So this is on the City River. It's on the opposite bank, north bank. So it's opposite an archaeological site called Kendall that Dr. Liz Graham documented in 1982, I guess. But yeah, so kind of cool. And it gave me something to talk about for the presentation. So sometimes these things happen nicely, right? I'm going to wrap up with a little bit of an advertisement for the Galen Anthropology Club. Here's a few pictures of everything that we've been doing the last couple of days. So we went out there to survey. I'm trying to think how many mounds. We probably found about 20 or 30 mounds. Probably mapped about 15 of them. Most of them were small habitation sites, residences, but we had this big eastern structure. We went up some massive hills, thinking there might be stuff up top, but far too long a walk. So if anyone listening feels like they want to hike up a massive hill and see what's going on, but we had some spectacular views of Victoria Peak. Really lovely stuff. The students all learned to map. They can all map house groups, ancient Maya structures, things like this. We ate a lot of coconuts, maybe ate too many coconuts. There's a lot of coconuts out there. We had a lot of lovely food courtesy of Silkgrass Farms. We did a lot of cool ATVs, blitzed it around on the ATVs. A few near accidents, but everything was all right. But yes. We did an outreach event in the local school, which was a huge amount of fun. So here's Leisha explaining to some of the children the ancient Maya game of Patoli. So this is an ancient dice game that the Maya played. And in that region, we didn't find any, but it's these only documented slate boards that they found out there. So it's the only region where those have been found. So it's slate Patoli boards. So these are like a kind of like chutes and ladders on a piece of slate. Yeah. Some of the hills, the ATVs were going up and down. We found some really cool caves. More the outreach event, which was a lot of fun. And hiking some transects in the fields. And yeah, right, it's beautiful. And us all doing Galen Eagles on top of the structures. Yes. Yeah, I believe they are. So it's all part of, I think it's now in the process of becoming the Silkgrass Wildlife Reserve. I can't remember quite what they're going to call it, but it's currently part of Silkgrass Farms. And they didn't know about it until earlier this week. So now they're going to protect, I think they're looking into protecting everything. And yeah, but they've been a real pleasure to work with. Lovely folks. And we're hoping to go back, do some investigations. Certainly myself and the PI, Dr. Amy Thompson, have talked about this. So there might be a little bit more news coming up soon. But on that note, I'm going to wrap up. And thank you all very much for listening. And thank all the students once again who made this little discovery happen. So, yeah. Questions? Yeah. So the sun will set on the opposite horizon. And now with some monuments, this is... so the question was, does the sunset have on the equinox, is that important, or does it have anything to do with it? So the sun will set on the opposite side, and some ancient people, Peru and Stonehenge, the setting location is important and there'll be stuff there. Seems to have been no importance to the Maya in theory. So the observatories are on the opposite side of the group, but for the Maya it seems to be all about the rising sun, rebirth and things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why is because I think it's going to be on Saturday night in Sokots. To the back of Sokots, there's a hill. And I won't mention names here on the microphone, but some gentlemen are getting people together. And I've witnessed this already in the past, John, where the sun would set right above El Castillo at this time of the year.
Yes, yes.
Right? And it's going to be a big thing. You're going to be having boyos and, then a night hike and things. I'm not doing any promotions, but I ask because I'm asking if it has anything to do with what you're talking about. So are they right? Or, because you said just now the Maya did not seem to make it an important issue.
So it's quite
the
possible.
Sunsets,
yeah. I could stand corrected. We obviously know about these Eastern things.
Yeah.
Now, so the tricky thing is that with the Eastern ones, we've got 3 points, and it works on all 3 of those points, and we know. Now, basically, if you have 2 points, you get a straight line. So there's always going to be 1 point on the ground somewhere, in front of which lies Shenantonich, where the sun will set on certain times of the year, right? So sometimes clarifying or verifying these things can be very difficult, but I could well believe that something is going on there, something undocumented. Or it might be documented somewhere out there and I don't know about it. But I'd be very intrigued.
Well, you should come.
Yeah.
You should come.
Yeah, count me in. Cool. Well, my weekend's filling up. Yes.
Was there like what's the process? Did you scan the area and then you say I'm going to go there at the Siltgrass suspect something, or did you just wander about?
Oh, this is a cool question. Okay, so Siltgrass Farms flew some drone-mounted LiDAR some time ago, and they're really keen to promote research within their area. And they reached out to one of my other friends who reached out to Dr. Amy Thompson, who I work a lot with. She's one of my very good friends. And they said, "Oh, do you want to come along?" And she said to me, "Do you want to bring some Galen students, do some field work?" They were very supportive of this. So Siltgrass Farms funded a lot of the field work. We got to stay in their rather wonderful house, which was a treat. And so that's all how it happened. And then it was just a case of getting to all these places, which was varying degrees of easy, as some of the folks can attest to. But yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So, I've been looking into the idea of the equinoxes and looking at ancient civilization as a whole. And when it comes to the Mayans, and I believe the ancient Egyptians as well, when it comes to the pyramid and the Sphinx, when the sun rises during the equinox as well, there's some sort of the sun rising between the pyramids and the Sphinx. But one of the things that I noticed as well was in the temple, I believe in Chichen Itza in Merida, there's a day, I believe it's today if I'm not mistaken, or something towards these types of weeks, whereby there's the sun. There's a certain position of the sun that makes the temple have a shadow that makes it look like a serpent.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of explanation to us how they managed to do something like that in the technology that they have?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I'm guessing. So the example we're talking about here is Chichen Itza and El Castillo at Chichen Itza, with the serpent outline on the stairs on the equinox where you can see it. I'm guessing it was someone very, very clever, watched. Maybe they made a model out of wood, something we haven't found, and then upscaled. I don't know. I don't know how they did it, but with a lot of these sorts of things, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they could do it. It's just knowing how they figured it out is pretty impressive. But yeah, if anyone, there's good footage of that on YouTube. If anyone's interested, you can watch it on YouTube. Great question. Cool. Okay, well, I'd like to thank you all very much. I'd like to thank the students, everyone who made it possible. Thank the Institute of Archaeology and Dr. Melissa Bedillo, who approved of the permit, the folks at Siltgrass Farms, and my collaborator, Dr. Amy Thompson. And thank you all, and I hope you all enjoy your Eagle Day.
Thank you, Dr. Walden.